Uh-oh, gotta turn the lights on. Hopefully this time, guys, it'll actually work. Okay, there we go. Man, my lighting really sucks. Yeah, I guess I can't do anything about that. My lighting sucks. But hopefully I won't have to do this like 5 or 6 times, guys. But I thought that I'd bring up actually a topic that's been coming up the last couple of days, and on CBR and, a whole bunch of other comic book websites. And that, guys, is about the Teen Titans cover, but it's also an age-old issue that's been brought up in recent times when it comes to comic books, which is the monogamy, edge, the fact of women writing comics, women getting into comics, and so on and so forth, and even the treatment of comic book characters, cosplayers, etc. Now, contrary to popular belief, guys, this is a very serious subject, I feel. And this doesn't actually stem from the fact that I grew up with a single mother. This stems more from the belief that I've always felt that, some women, not all, but some women, should be treated with respect, depending on what their field is. Like for me, I don't look at Kelly Sue DeBravick, I probably just mispronounced her name horribly, and Gail Simone. I didn't even know that there were females that wrote comics, and in fact, I actually was quite thrilled about that, because it's like, okay, now we're starting to break the old monogamistic, boys club mentality, because it's the classic, anything you can do, I can do better deal. If anybody doesn't believe that women can write comics, I suggest that you read Gail Simone's Secret Six, her Birds of Prey, and her recent Red Sonja. That woman can write. But I checked out even Kelly Sue's, Captain Marvel, and her former Miss Marvel, her Carol Danvers stuff, and while I don't care really honestly too much for the artwork, it's like I kind of dug what I was reading. I still need to read the rest of it, but I'm kind of digging it. I like the direction that she's going with Carol. Read a teaser for what she was doing with Avenging Spider-Man, trying to get Carol and Pete together. But I find it funny, I really do, that women are now objectified, not just in comic books, but they're objectified even in real life. Women aren't allowed to read comics, and they're not allowed to read them, and da-da-da-da-da. They're not allowed to play video games, and I look at that and I go, why? Like, not even just as a male, trying to get, like, a cool, geeky chick. It's like, just, my mentality is why? Like, what's really the point? What is really the frickin' point in bringing women down? Seriously. I have to question this. Like, what is the purpose? What do you gain from it? Me personally, I don't think you gain anything. And in fact, it's backwards thinking, I think, too, because not just with technology and old people, but it's just, with the old outdated deal that, oh, well, our demographic has always been males. Well, here's one argument, and it may not be much of an argument, but I feel it's a valid argument. With comic book movies coming out and nerdy boyfriends taking their non-comic book girlfriends to these movies, that gains a surplus interest. Like a few of the people that I work with at my job who are not comic book fans have enjoyed Avengers, they've enjoyed the X-Men movies, and ironically, most of the people that I work with are female, and they enjoy those things. They may not ever go and buy the comics, but the fact is that the geek culture has evolved, both for better and for worse, in terms of the fact that now we have women trying to get into this, and the fact that now comics are becoming a little too dark for even new generational children to get into. And it's kind of really sad that now we have a surplus in the geek community, quote unquote, the geek and nerd community, to where now we have this outdated stance that it's only guys who read comics from the 60s that are allowed. People from my generation that read the 80s and 90s comics, these new millennial comic book fans are pretty much just a-hole meatheads who apparently know nothing about comics. Yet the funny part is, I'm just as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable, than people who have read comics since the 60s and 70s. Yeah, I went there for most of you in the YouTube comic book community who have been reading since that timeline. Call me cocky or arrogant, but it's the fact that I just find it funny. Old comic book fans, alleged new comic book fans, male, female, children. It just seems like everybody has this very negative stigma. It's like comic books always had a negative stigma, but now I feel getting an even bigger negative stigma because now with all these movies coming out, everybody thinks that they're an expert, or people feel like they should shun women or shun people that actually support women in comics. And you're asking, well, okay, Steve, you're all over the place with this. What point are you getting at? My main point is that the demographic for comics, guys, has changed. And yet the old demographic that we did have, and when I say demographic, I'm not talking about age groups, guys. I'm talking about like comics themselves. The demographic of comics themselves has changed to now this Frank Miller, dark, gritty, everything has to be extreme, or the women have to look, bodacious and buxom just to get a comic sold. And honestly, I didn't agree with her opinion, but Jane Al-Sulin, I'm horrible with massacring people's names. But anyway, if you've read the controversy about, this female blogger talking about the cover to Teen Titans #1, the reboot that DC recently did, and how some people are on the bandwagon, some people are saying she's too feministic. I'm in the group where I say she was being a little too nitpicky and a little bit too feministic, but at the same time she brought up a valid point that even I have to point out, which is the fact that, okay, Cassie Sandsmark, Wonder Girl, should not have a porn star face and looking like she had silicone breasts. Because this is a superheroine, and everybody's like, well, what's your justification for Wonder Woman? Okay, Diana is different, but at the same time, the argument still stands for that too. It's like you want to portray a male or female comic book character being sexy, that's fine, but don't overdo it to where it seems like, okay, this character was meant just to be, TNA and, DNA. And you're asking, well, okay, what's, TNA and DNA? And, pardon my French, but it's like, tits and ass and, dick and ass. That's all it really is. You're basically trying to draw male characters with either a big junk or overly rippled steroid bodies, and you got women with basically like Rob Liefeld's drawings back in the old Image days, where women had this ridiculous hourglass frame that was unrealistic. I'm not saying go full cheesecake with how the female characters should look, but I'm not saying that they should have, realistic, like curves and stuff, but what I am saying is make them look like a superhero or superheroine first and eye candy later, if not at all. Because if I want to look at a Jenna Jameson knockoff, I'm going to go on Google and type in Jenna Jameson. I'm just saying. I read superhero comics for superheroes and superheroines, not to have a frickin' Jenna Jameson wannabe on the front cover. And that's what I feel like they tried to do with Wonder Girl. And also it's slight, justification on my part, but as well, I feel that with Wonder Girl looking the way that she does on that cover and making my own nitpicks, not only as a comic book fan, but as a male, I'm going to be honest, as a male, I find it kind of disgusting. And a lot of people are like, well, you obviously must be gay. No, I'm not gay. I just simply, as a comic book fan, cannot accept that that's how a teenage superheroine is supposed to look on the front cover. right next to Raven, whose New 52 look looks like she's got her face eaten by a head crab from Half-Life. But that's a whole different discussion for a whole different time. But what I don't like about this, guys, as well, is the fact that the book is Teen Titans. Keyword, teen. And no matter what a comic book artist says, no matter what a writer says, you cannot justify a front cover sexualizing a teenage character. That's kind of like giving a baby pot, or it's just, extremely like allowing people to look at Mary-Kate and Ashley in the early days, in a child pornography type setting, and saying that it's legal, it's justified. And some of you are like, okay, whoa, that's an extreme accusation, Steve. Yeah, it may be, but it gets the point across, does it not? That a book is called Teen Titans, yet you have an overly glorified female superheroine who is still, I want to say, 15 to 17 years old, and she's running around looking like a Victoria's Secrets model. I'm sorry, I don't see the justification in that. Not as a man, not as a comic book fan. I find it not only disgusting, but I find it a big turnoff. It doesn't make me want to read Teen Titans. It doesn't make me want to even attempt to try anything else from DC other than what I hear by word of mouth and what I feel is halfway decent. Stuff like Justice League Dark and Demon Knights, books that have actually been canceled that were actually good. And even Animal Man to a certain extent, even though I will not read Animal Man's New 52 deal, not because I hate it, but because I felt like that version of Animal Man is too much like Hellraiser. But once again, discussion for a different time. But I feel that looking at that cover, and it's not me, trying to win women over. It's just me as a comic book fan looking at this and going, this is unacceptable. Because I don't know much about Cassie. I've always been a Donna Troy kind of guy, but it's like, I like Cassie. I like her personality. I think it was cool that there was a new Wonder Girl, and now in the New 52 that they're trying to sexualize and glorify her, and I don't like that. She shouldn't look like... She's fine to have pin-up looks. Your superheroines can have pin-up-esque looks, but they cannot look like pin-ups themselves, if that makes sense. And I don't like that. I don't like that. And I certainly don't like the hatred and the bigotry in the comics industry, especially towards female writers who want to make them more than just eye candy. It's like if anything, Red Sonja, always a very sexualized, character. Never always read Red Sonja just for the chainmail bikini. I read her because she kicked ass. That's why I love that character. And the eye candy aspects, like, she's a redhead, which that's my kryptonite, guys. I'm sorry. I am putting that out there, guys and gals, redheads are my kryptonite. But it's like the chainmail bikini was something that the hormonal part of me caught, but it's like the comic book fan of me, the adventurer and overall fan, it's like, okay, this woman's taking on like giant serpents, she's fighting lions, she's fighting angry like Mongol-esque hordes of like zombies and stuff. I'm like, this is awesome. So it's like my love of Red Sonja isn't just from like a hormonal perspective, it's also from an, oh my god, this is awesome, like an old sword and shield fantasy perspective. But at the same time, getting back to Teen Titans, because I felt I had to go on a little bit of a tangent there about Red Sonja, but I feel, guys, getting back to the Teen Titans cover, that this is not acceptable. Not just for, teenage comics, but it's not acceptable, period, that, DC has to glorify their female characters like that. Nobody, I'm sorry, as cool and as hormonally cool and as much of a turn-on as it might be to see, Dina Lance doing that high kick in her fishnets, unless it's her, like, doing a leggish uppercut towards Two-Face or, a mind-controlled ollie, it should not be necessary. You know, it's like fan service should not be every other panel. I'm sorry, seeing Madame Xanadu's, butt crack, during a love scene between her and, Jason Blood or Etrigan during like Demon Nights or something, it's like, unless it's for a romantic purpose to establish a deeper intimate connection with those characters. And even then, I still am like, okay, it's a bit too much. It's not needed. It really is not needed. And I realized, okay, there's timelines, there's deadlines, but even then, it's unacceptable. It's like, you know better. It's like, come on now, you got grown men and women in the comics industry who are getting, slackish and lazy, with their stories. And I don't like that. Part of the reason I write for Marvel Universe 2K14 and DC New Earth is because I want to try to write, good stories that harken back to the stories of yesteryear, but the stories of the future. Stuff that's modern, but has that old silver to Bronze Age twist. It's like that's the way that you need to go. And you gotta make comics for kids, too. I'm sick of this mentality that we write comics for 18 or 19 to 40-year-olds. Don't do that. Don't target just that demographic. Target women, target children, especially children. Children are watching these Marvel movies. Give them a kid-friendly Guardians of the... for example, Marvel should bring back Marvel Adventures. Marvel... I mean, to me, it's hilarious. The Avengers travel to the Cro-Magnon period, and Spider-Man's like, we're gonna travel to a land of dinosaurs, and Ant-Man's looking at him, Hank Pym just going, you can't just call dibs on what timeline, and then they end up there, and Spidey's like, see, told you. It's like stupid fun things like that are what you need more in comics. Or seeing the Hulk beat up a T-Rex because it ate his last bag of cookies or something. It's like something so ridiculously stupid, yet fun and goofy that you can enjoy it, your kids can enjoy it. All I'm really saying, guys, is that the industry needs to go back to what it was, if not a little bit. Harken back to what really made these characters famous, harken back to what made the comics and geek industry what it was today, and stop trying to appease all these hipster people that just watch the movies. And it's like, if you're those kinds of people that you just watch the movies, if you're going to watch the movies, at least try to buy one or two comics, at least show, if not for yourselves, then do it for your kids. Because your kids may want to actually read the comics. But just support the industry as a whole, and not just, the male bravado, power fantasy stuff, but support anybody. Support Kelly Sue, support Gail Simone, support any female comic book writer or artist that is trying to break into the industry, because Lord knows for any of us who are actual fans right now, it's hard to break into the industry. Especially since screenwriters are starting to come and do comics, and they're taking that potential gold mine away from those of us who are actual fans who want to try to work towards actually working in the comics industry. And I realize that that's a very, asinine statement, if not arrogant and ignorant, but I feel that screenwriters should stay with screenwriting, and people that are in the comics industry should stay in the comics industry. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't branch out. I'm not going to say that they should stay in their corrective areas, but I'm just saying don't just jump ship to one thing and then make it harder for people who want to actually write not be able to. And I'm trying not to give mixed messages, but all I'm basically saying, guys, is that as a whole, not just as a community, but just as a whole, as a nation, as a world, full of geeks and nerds. We have to support women who write in comics or are trying to break into the industry and are becoming or are want to become fans. We have to support the right kind of movements to actually make sure that we get more movies and get better standing comics. And we certainly, guys, have to try to provide good material for our children and also trying to add a good standing, because I'm getting tired of seeing all these sleazy covers, all these sleazy superheroines, these jacked up male machismo like superheroes. This isn't the 90s anymore. I'm sorry to say it's not. We don't need jacked up, roided up, characters. We don't need, douchebaggy and hipsters. We don't need, these overly buxom women, or, especially in the case of some fan art that I've seen for She-Hulk, overly muscular women. Well, I don't mind the overly muscular women part, but that's just a personal opinion. But it's just, I'm basically saying as a whole, our comics need to get better, and our community needs to get better, because I get sick of seeing all these articles and feeling like I'm part of a community that is so obliquely negative, or has such a negative perception as to who is really a geek and who isn't, and also this biased perspective that, these movies shouldn't be for comic book fans. That's another thing that gets on my nerves. And I understand David Goyer's point, because David Goyer in a recent interview made the statement that, they don't do stuff like Smallville and Man of Steel and stuff for comic book fans. They look at that as one portion of their audience, and I'm sorry to say, it's hand in hand. It's half and half, guys. You can't make a comic book movie and not expect to have some fans, actually come and see that movie. But on the same hand, you can't alienate the casual audience by putting a whole bunch of fan service deals. The details should be in the middle. And that's what I love that Kevin Feige and Marvel have been doing recently. They've been trying to go straight down the middle. Stuff for the fans, stuff for people that aren't, to try to get them introduced to the characters and maybe, hopefully, get them to buy comics. So that's all I'm really saying, guys, is when you go to see these movies and your kids want to actually start collecting the comics for these, characters, look around, go to a comic shop, ask people. Hell, if you have access to YouTube, you can ask like me and my fellow YouTubers, core people, or even, Marvel 2K14 people, or just anybody that is closely assimilated to me here on YouTube. I've actually done that for people. One of my coworkers, his sons are getting into comic books. I'm actually currently working out going to a con with him. If we can get, everything together, get, the scheduling right for vacation. We're talking about the possibility, guys, of, actually going to a con, and, he's really excited for it, more for his sons, and his sons really want to go, and, it'd be the first con that I'd ever go to, and it would certainly, make my century, if you will. But that's getting a little bit too personal, guys, but I'm just saying, my passion for my craft, what I love, is slowly being tarnished and deteriorated. There we go. I couldn't form my words there for a moment. It's very depressing. Bottom line, it's depressing that all these articles are now popping up talking about this kind of stuff, and that we still live in a very caveman-esque, totalitarian society where women still should be making baby and going to make and being at home and having dinner on time and stuff like that. And I'm sorry, but I live in the 21st century where women actually should be allowed the same kind of rights as guys. Doesn't mean that there isn't some part of me that has some monogamistic thoughts. I'm not going to say that I'm absolutely perfect, But I do believe that women deserve and more than earn, their fair standing alongside men, when it comes to certain fields. They want to do sports, I say let them. They want to do comics, I say let them. You know, they want an equal paycheck, I say why the hell not? It's like if anything, women are on the same equal playing field as men. That's all that I'm saying. And I think, the same could be done for our comics or any of our interests, our athletes, etc. Now I'm going on one big, like, feminism-esque rant, but at the same time, it's well earned, guys. And I'm targeting specifically comics here. But I ranted on enough. It's been like 25, almost 30 minutes here, 26, and I just like rambled back and forth. But anyway, try and look up these articles that I've been talking about throughout this video. But yeah, I'm tired of, as I recently read an article not less than an hour ago called Busting the Masturbatory, Comic Bubble. And also, if you're one of those like hardcore comic fans that you don't want women writing for the industry, do me a favor and destroy your computer and keyboard right now, because I'm sick of seeing you and everybody like you sending all these rape threats to women that work not only in the comic industry but the video game industry. Seriously, I don't know what Nazi, KKK, Westboro Baptist Church reverse thinking that you have there, but it's not working out for you. It's making you look like an asshole. Matter of fact, it's making you look beyond an asshole. It's actually making you look like you should be at the funny farm or you should be in jail. I'm just saying. I'm saying it for your benefit. I'm trying to help you become a better person inside. I'm not going to tell you that you need Jesus. I'm telling you, you need to get common sense and heal your life. Because common sense will heal you. It will bless you with the knowledge and the understanding that you are being a dumbass. That's all I got to say about that.